Hi, everyone. My name is Laurel Bellman. I'm the event manager at the Division of Information Technology, and I'm moderating today's session, which is continuing the conversation, IT Support Symposium virtual meetup. So thanks for joining us. Today we have two of the symposium's organizers. We have Ella Tschopik and Sarah Lien, and they're just going to very briefly give a recap of the symposium for those of you who might not have been able to attend it in person, followed by some Q&A. And then you will be able to select one of several IT support topics. No, we're just
Well,
going
we're
to do one
just
big
gonna
group.
have one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then we're just going to have a large group discussion about IT support topics that you know, you hopefully are interested in discussing. Um, and throughout the session, feel free to just pop your questions into the chat and I can read those out to Ella and Sarah. All right, with that, I will let Ella and Sarah take it away.
Welcome, everybody. Uh, Sarah, should we move to the next slide? I think yeah, perfect. All right. So today we are going to talk about the IT Support Symposium. We're going to cover a little bit about what it was like, how the day flowed. We're going to ask for any firsthand or even secondhand, if you heard from someone who attended, what their experience or your experience was, and then we're going to spend some time connecting with others, kind of like we did during the symposium here in this event. We will do maybe one support topic and then one just kind of general topic when we get there. We're adjusting on the fly for our group size. We had no idea how many people were going to attend today, but we hope you will join us in our conversation a little later. Well, the IT Support Symposium was held on April 16th at the Memorial Union. It was in person only, which was a intentional choice we made because hybrid spaces can be hard to manage, let's say. I think people get the most out of events when they are virtual only or when they are in person only. And for this one and the kind of experience we wanted people to have, we chose in person only. We also limited our group size. We wanted no more than 100 people registered, and that included the folks who helped us out with facilitation and our panel, as well as our committee. Our planning committee spent about a year working on the event. We made a lot of really intentional choices around the event, from seating arrangements to what um, what people would be discussing and how those discussions would look. We did some training for our facilitators to help them be prepared to ask generative questions and keep conversations going, engaging everybody in their conversations. The flow of the day, it was only a half day event, and the flow was different than a traditional conference in that we we had less prescribed sessions and more kind of engaged sessions. So our opening was kind of some curated icebreakers, somewhat at your group tables, which were randomized seating. When we walked in, everybody was given a randomized seating assignment. And then we did a full group icebreaker, as well as table icebreakers with some questions to get people engaged in talking. Again, those questions were pretty intentionally developed. Then we had a great panel presentation from the IT rotators that was moderated by Todd Schechter. And then we moved into our facilitated discussions. Those facilitated discussions were chosen by a pre-event survey that we sent to our attendees to see what folks who were attending were actually interested in, because we came up with a bunch of topics and some of them people were interested in, but it was much a better experience for our attendees to know what it was that they were interested in. So as they came in and got their name badges for the day, they also picked which facilitated discussion they wanted to attend. After the facilitated discussions were over, everybody came back to the full group where we participated in an event called a format of an event format called a World Cafe, sort of a small group engagement style event. And again, we had some questions that help people kind of get to know others at their tables. These were intentionally designed groups with people from different departments and different titles. And then those people would answer questions and move from space to space. As we began planning our event, we kind of started up front with our desired outcomes, which were to create connections and to build community within IT on campus, and then cross-pollination of ideas between departments. The event was designed for just anyone that sees themselves in IT support. I know we had folks from leadership to people who had like started 2 days ago to instructional designers as well. So we had a pretty broad range of, I think, 44 different titles of folks who chose to attend that day. Um, we sent out an event feedback survey after the event, and we had about a 50% return rate on that, which was amazing. People were very generous with their feedback for us, which was fantastic. 87% of folks who turned in their feedback so that they would attend another event like this. 100% either shared an idea or made a connection, and 100% brought back ideas. So that really felt like we hit our objectives on the nose there. People in their feedback really liked the ease of the discussion. Like I said, we intentionally designed the questions and chose them to help get people talking and make people feel comfortable engaging with each other. People really did like the facilitated discussions, though wish they were longer or that they had more options or that they were more technically in depth. Ideally, next year we would like to have more technically in depth ones, especially maybe panels. When we had originally pictured the event, we saw several panels, but it was hard in that design in like the building stage to find people and develop those panels because no one had ever heard of this event before and they weren't quite sure what I was asking them. But I think now that we've gone through it once, we'll find a few more folks to sit on our panels because I think it'd be great if we could have like a in imaging panel, right? Like people who design different imaging systems, and we could ask them questions. And you can pick which session you'd like to attend. So hopefully for next year we'll have a little bit more technical depth there. People did enjoy that in-person format. We had kind of tossed around a virtual option, but actually very few people said that they would be interested in attending a virtual event. So I really think that in-person was a big focus. So we are going to continue with the in-person format moving forward. We think if there ever were going to be a virtual one, it would need to be fully redeveloped from the ground up. If anybody was interested in doing that and wants to talk to me about it, please reach out. I would be happy to work on that with you. But at this time, we're just going to continue focusing on the in-person piece. All right. And now we would love to hear if you were there, if you attended, if you heard anything about it. We're just kind of going to open the floor up for a moment. Thanks.
I mean, I'll get the ball rolling on it. I got to help plan it, which was awesome. But what was great is also when we finished and went back to my own art college and our desktop group met, I got to hear a ton of ideas that people were getting from all the different sessions and a different way of looking at things. And some of the things that came up in the symposium came up over and over again in our community meetings and in our desktop meetings and just generally talking in the office, which is pretty nice to know that people are getting something out of it and it makes people think, and not just the people that attend it. So I really appreciated that we did this, and I'm looking forward to more of our group getting to attend next year. Jamie?
Jamie?
Yeah. Um, I think for me, I came away with so much value from attending this, and I don't think I can even fully do it justice. I mean, it was a mix of like feeling very proud of my folks and like hearing them in the wild, sort of sharing examples of things they were doing, just being like, I'm so proud of like the things you all are doing, and like learning what others are doing and being like, oh, that's such an amazing idea, and like, making note of it. Is it something we could, look at, adopting or, partnering? And then sort of overarching, I feel like I came away with this really like solidified sense that one of the greatest opportunities that I think this community can continue to build on together is how do we address like the continuity of experience in support services across the university. It's like, without question, everyone there was phenomenal, doing phenomenal work. And I heard so many people describe like a desire for the handoffs between groups to be smoother, or for knowledge and information to be shared, you know, in easier ways. And so I feel like I heard a lot of themes of people wanting to like tackle that opportunity area of how do we think about the people we're helping out at the university, students, faculty, staff, researchers, whoever, and like help their experience continue to improve and, you know, be guided in like a cohesive way across our incredibly complicated technology landscape. So it's a space where, as this group continues, I'm hopeful we can kind of continue to tackle those topics together and kind of collectively create solutions for the challenges that I think we're all facing.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, I kind of got the idea from my involvement with SIGUX, which is a nationwide conference where folks get together and talk about, you know, IT, basically IT support and other broader IT topics. And I just remember my very first time going to one of those. I was a computer lab manager and engaging in a conversation with someone else that was a computer lab manager. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I can't have this conversation anywhere else. And this is like, I love this. And as I got more involved in SIGUX, I was like, you know, the UW-Madison is so large. We don't really have many peers in a small or group like that. But when I think about the School of Education, we are kind of the size of those smaller schools that I interact with at SIGUX. And so and then when I start to think about the School of Education as a college or a school, I can picture each of the other departments as kind of like a school. I'm like, man, we could have like this whole type of exact engagement on this campus. Like, everybody's doing things, and some of them are the same, but some of them are different. And I think we would all just really love to talk to each other about it and have that conversation in that moment of like, you do the same thing. Yeah. So um, I think it's exciting to help to kind of start building the trust between everybody, like get other people thinking like, oh, they're out there doing the same things I'm doing. Like, what is it that they're doing, or what is it that what I'm doing? Because when we're all just behind screens, and you know, it's a little bit different than when we're actually out there seeing the other people who we are interacting with. Sarah?
If this works. Yay, it worked. Okay. What I liked about it is something that it struck me just now when we were talking about having conversations that we can't have anywhere else. When I was much younger in my career, I was told to go look for a conference that fit me. And there's not a lot of conferences that fit me. And I think what's nice about this conference is it was very honed in on IT support. And you know, if I decided I wanted to go to EDUCAUSE, there might be sessions about IT support, but there probably wouldn't be. This was very focused. And I think it was a good opportunity to get people into that mindset and learn new things. It struck me almost like an unconference. Like, I just went to this unconference thing like 2 sessions ago about unconferences. And like, that's a lot like the IT support conference that we just at symposium we were just at, except the symposium was a little bit more structured. But I could see us bleeding some of the techniques from an unconference format into this too. So
Cool. I'm gonna have to watch that session. I attended a different one in that time slot, but we are, you know, gonna start planning again for next year, and I'm open for new ideas and things that we can spin in to increase or better or change the way that it went. I'm not, you know, it's not like this is how it happened, this is how it will always happen. It's like, what does the space need and what else can we do? Any
Anyone
other?
else?
Oh,
I was just gonna say, anyone else want to share anything? Anything anyone heard from someone else that brought you to this session today?
Okay. So should we launch into some discussion? So, okay. Okay. So we won't be, because of our numbers, we won't be jumping into breakout rooms. So we're just gonna one big breakout room that we are right now. So if people want to start, we're gonna start in talking and yeah. Ella, do you have an idea of which topic to
Yeah.
pick, or is anyone else going to shout out and say, I really want to talk about remote support, or or my ticketing system really gets me excited?
Yeah, one that might be interesting was departmental relationships and kind of how we work within and with other departments in good ways and ways that could be strengthened. That might be a good topic for this space. Or, maybe we really want to talk about ticketing systems.
Oh, sorry, like glitch. There we go.
We could
So,
talk. I like talking about ticketing systems.
and I guess at this point, feel free to unmute and just kind of jump in.
In the School of Ed, we use RT, which is a free software, which means it doesn't do everything, but it does enough that we make it work for us and it can be configured. One of my direct reports who started last year came in and was like, hey, is there a way that we know if someone else is working in the ticket, which there hadn't been, but it turned out, sure enough, there was an add-in. So we downloaded it, added it. Now we know if somebody else is working in the ticket. So it's got some pluses, some minuses. They're very confusing. It takes our students a long time to understand what's happening, but it's free.
We have one guy on our team that we call him the master of wins because we use SolarWinds for our ticketing system. And it'll let you see if someone else is typing in a ticket or adding stuff to it. And we kind of use that as our flow. And seeing our groups are growing, we've been adding more people in. But yeah, that's kind of how ours works for the collaboration part.
We use an open source product called Track. Track is not terribly complex. It is configurable to some extent. It probably doesn't have as much bells or whistles as as RT or SolarWinds, but for our very small group, it works just fine. And it's free.
Which is
Free
that
is good.
That seems to be kind of like the universal determinant. Yeah, I ask because my job is literally ITSM engineer, and I don't know many other people who are doing this. Um, and the only other service management system I ever hear about is Cherwell, which seems to be universally hated, despite being like the majority across campus because it exists.
okay, so I've got a different view on Sherwell a little bit. That was just a little bit different because I got to during the pandemic, I had a Sherwell user that was sitting at the same table as me because my husband was using it. And when it's a fresh version of Sherwell, then it seems pretty cool and it's got a lot of stuff. It's when it's an old version and it's been patched over, like someone just putting band-aid over band-aid over band-aid, then it gets hated, it feels like. At least that was my impression of Sherwell, that when it's fresh, it's very nice and organized and
So you're
flows.
saying we just need to trade it in for a new model.
Possibly.
Isn't that what's happening right now? Isn't there a project to find a new ticketing system?
I think so.
I can speak to that a bit. So within Do It, we currently use Sharewell, and my understanding is it was selected, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, before my time. And I think it sounds like that's sort of what happened over time is the patching, the building up, the technical debt, things can accumulate. And so we do have a project because Sharewell was announced end of life The company that owns Sharewell has a different product called Avanti that is their Avanti Neurons. Sorry, Avanti is the company. Neurons is their ITSM product that'll be their sole product when they officially end of life Sharewell. So we're having a project to move from Sharewell to Neurons within the Do It ITSM tool space. And then there are a few collaborators across the university who work with us within our ticketing system as well. So that would be part of the transition. But a big part of it has been looking at like how, with this opportunity to start fresh, like what is that strategic foundation of how that system gets created? How do we think about learning from the lessons of the past and what worked and what, you know, could have been better with the original implementation? And you know, there was mixed adoption and usage, and you know, some loss over time of clarity about like what is the tool and the system for, who's using it for what purpose, how do we maintain cohesion. So yeah, we'll be sort of implementing, redesigning, using it as a chance to kind of clean house procedurally as well. And then part of the interest in going with that product is the West group that'll be managing Workday is also using that UW system, and the UW system institution selected Neurons. And so, you know, keeping an eye towards the future of like, are there potential opportunities for better like cross collaboration? You know, thinking about handoffs, like all of us have that challenge of you take in a ticket somewhere, but then you need to hand it over to another team. Right now, that's generally a person to person, you know, you're sending an email, now you're out of your ticketing flow. Like, are there integration opportunities? Are there things we could think about with like more seamless handoffs, you know, maintain the continuity of information? That'll all be down the line, things to explore. First step is just get off of the system that's going end of life. But
Well, if you want any advice on what not to do in a project like that, I have plenty. That's literally what I'm doing for School of Medicine and Public Health. We're consolidating way too many ticketing systems into Atlassian Cloud. And the lack of strategic planning that has gone into this was genuinely shocking to me. Like I knew I was going to be in charge of implementation, but I stupidly assumed that at some point leadership had had a discussion about a service portfolio and that maybe they knew what a service catalog was. They didn't, they don't, they still don't. So I'm creating the service catalog, which means I'm telling directors like 2 levels above me what their team is going to do, and I should not be the one doing that, but nobody else is, and you can't really do service management without services. Yeah. So don't do what SMPH did. It was just from the top down bad ideas.
Yeah, Sarah put in the chat, finding out those lessons learned saves people running into walls. And that is so true. I can't even tell you how many times someone has, you know, saved my butt and my frustration by sharing something candidly with me and have been like, oh my gosh, you have no idea how much that helped. So thanks. Helpful. Uh, Ella, do you want to stick with ticketing and Sarah, do you
I
want to
thought
stick
I
with
would.
ticketing?
We thought we would maybe put one more call out to see if anybody else wanted to share about their ticketing system, and then maybe talk
Okay.
about departmental relationships. But just see if there's anybody we haven't heard from yet that would like to share about their ticketing system.
I think a lot of us have, or at least from my point of view, a lot of us have been dealing with a bit of a reshuffling within our groups. And then the ticket system becomes a whole nother thing, because a lot of times people would just Teams message you and email you, and it all worked as long as you were the only one that they were messaging. Now we've got, and then a service account that an email goes to isn't enough. because you've got to be able to keep track of all the steps. And as you have more people asking for things, I mean, I don't like using tickets for like demographic stuff at all. From my point of view, it's like the number of minutes till I answer is pointless for me
Mm.
because people ask me questions as they leave the office at the end of the day. They'll shoot a ticket off, and then when you reply to them, even if you're like within 10 minutes, they're like, "Oh, I'll leave on vacation for 2 weeks. I'll see you at."
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So then it's like on hold. But having the tickets keeps me organized. Otherwise, I've got to have whole separate systems. And then if I go on vacation, I've got to like share them to someone else. And it's nice keeping it in one thing.
One thing that we've done at Merit, which we are a combined service unit of IT and library and teaching and learning over the last 5 or so years, probably since the pandemic, is we've kind of got everybody on the ticketing system. And it was a bit of a change for the library processes, for the teaching and learning processes, but once they understood like the flow of, the people contact us, we just work with them through the system to resolve the problem, and then the problem is closed, right? And we have a record of the problem, we can see where it was, they know how to contact us again to get that help, and they've kind of bought into it. So we've been able to bring kind of our whole department into the ticketing system, which has been a really beneficial to our ways of work.
We have one group in our group that they had such good buy-in in their department. They had their own HR people and their building manager people, and they were all in one ticket system and it all flowed together. And it's like, that's the dream of HR hires someone and you get notified right away. And
That's
that
what
they
we're doing.
have keys to the building right
Nice.
away. Like,
That's
Yeah, the
awesome.
whole enterprise service management thing, which is honestly something I think that Do It should look into. Because having to go to so many different systems to get stuff is difficult for users. Enterprise service management definitely needs to be more of a topic campus wide because ultimately service management is about the customer requesting services. And you do want it to be easy for them and not have them have to go to 7, 8, 9 different systems that all take information in different ways.
Yeah.
I'm curious if do others feel that, just to get like, I don't know, super informal, non-scientific sense of interest, is, like, is there a broad interest in more look at like Do It offering like a enterprise ticketing service or something along those, any service needs like a whole process of designing, like what is that
Right.
service, who is it for, what is it all? But um I've heard everything on the range. I've heard like, yes, Do It should have a service, you should have had a service yesterday, all the way to like, don't you dare offer a service, I have my own ticketing system, I would never use your service. So I'm just curious, from this small little group of people, like, where are you all at? What, just give me a sense of the world.
I think within the School of Ed, we have been on the like, we wish Do It had, or at least there was a campus-wide ITSM solution, is what our thought has been. Looks
that
like
is
Sarah.
I will say that a few years ago, before the pandemic, the LNS group decided that they were going to investigate getting a ticketing system for the entire college. And we looked at different options and we polled people about what was important. And we did come up with a solution, and then we took it to purchasing and they said no. And that is often the case in some places where the people who want it are very clear about what they want, but the people who run the purchasing and the budgetary things don't realize the importance of it. And then people are forced to step back and rely on cheap or free solutions that they have to spend a lot of time massaging and everything. One thing that's come up recently that I'd like to see a little bit more traction on is software sharing. So, like, you hear this a lot, like, oh, I have a license for this in my department and it costs us X amount. And I have the same license in my department, it costs me Y amount. How do I want in on your license? How do I get in on your license? I would love to see more collaboration in that space because I think that not just ticketing systems, but a lot of other systems we could do some sharing and use a single license instead of 8 different licenses for the same thing. And I know a few years ago we tried that. We tried to do some kind of collaboration in that area, and I think it came off as a little heavy-handed. But I think if it comes around from gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we weren't all paying an exorbitant amount of money for the same thing and we could save some money by changing that? I don't have a good idea of how to fix that. Aside from if something comes to Central Campus and isn't funded because the money isn't there, then have the people who are involved and interested in it meet separately and figure out a cost sharing solution.
Yeah, I remember when I started, um, we got in on educations. I'm pointing to Ella because she's next to me in the queue in the squares. Um, that we got in on their Baumgar license, and we just had to work through them to get licenses. Now DeWitt's transition that they manage it more, but that was huge for us because at the time it was just 2 of us in our little department that was using it, and it wouldn't have made sense for us to. But getting added in gave us a lot of flexibility. Um,
My understanding about that Bomgar system was that Do It did offer Bomgar, but for some reason Bomgar offered the School of Ed a lower rate. And so there were like multiple Bomgar services spun up on campus, and we were charging people at a lower rate. And so that's why the School of Ed license was getting bigger. And it was like, why are we software managing? And that's when it went back to Do It. But yeah, there's got to be some way to make this process better, let's say. Which kind of brings us to departmental relationships, doesn't
yeah,
it? It's a good transition right there. When we think about departmental relationships, do we think about IT's relationships with the departments they work with? Do we think about intra-IT department relationships? Both? Who's got a good thought or story to kick us off here?
okay, I'm going to start off, I guess. So the interdepartmental stuff really kind of locked in when I started volunteering for conferences because otherwise I was only in my bubble and I knew John because I had seen him and I'd only seen him at like once in a while. And then we're kind of all in our own bubbles. And it was going to conferences and now doing the more training that it's like, oh, I got invited to be on a search committee in education. And it's like, oh, you guys do things differently. You can do things differently. And it brings in a ton of different ideas. And it's really cool to be able to do that. But then it's also, when I think of departmental relationships, it's also my primary focus for the past few years is I take care of the administrative part of CALS. So I work with business services and HR. Those are the people that I take care of. So when I ask for things from business services, I ask them how they want me to ask them. And they actually tell me what they want. So that it's easy for them to approve it. Because if they don't understand my request, because oddly, if I ask for a bunch of patch cables, they don't know what I'm patching and they don't know what it means.
Yeah.
So I have to write a description in. But once I describe it, they're fine. And they normally approve things pretty easily if I'm within reason. So having a good relationship where they trust I don't blow through money because I can. It's more that I need something and I explain to them why. So it's building up a trust, at least as far as because I do a lot of the purchasing that I had to have that with them. What are some other examples other people have?
So it's interesting that you brought up more. When I was in more, one of my homework assignments was to interview the people in my department and find out what was important to them, which should have been obvious. I'd been working there for 2 years at that point, well, more than that. And so I went and had these conversations, and it wasn't things that I learned a lot. I learned a lot about some of uh, the touchy things about the department that I didn't realize. And it learned that I can just go and talk to anyone about anything. And so one thing that happened when we changed chairs is I sat down with him and I talked to him about what's important about being a chair. And he was surprised to hear that I advised him to not use his Gmail account for communications, things like that. And it and at one point they said, "Oh, we like Sarah because she tells us things. She talks to us." And that is, it's strange that that needs to be taught, but it helps so much to have those conversations and just be able to say, "Hey, I have a question about this," or "You should really know about this," or "You really shouldn't be using your Gmail to communicate official chair things." So, um, talking to the people in distributed IT's departments, the professors and the instructors and whoever, really is great. Like, I feel so much more part of the department.
I
One
I agree that talking to people really can help build trust. Um, and I am fairly introverted. I have pretty direct conversations, but when I was hiring last year, I hired two staff who are they love to chat, and it's been really great watching them go through the department and make all these connections and learn about what everybody's doing, and we get, so much better communication with our departments because they've, sat and had a 2-hour conversation with one of my direct reports about the weather or whatever, cool hobbies they have. The one will be like, "Oh yeah, he's got I know so and so. They've been working on this and that and all these hobbies." And I think that building of trust, even of the not work related pieces, right, is kind of what brings that like basis of communication together.
one thing I've always been curious about is improving the relationships between central IT and distributed IT. And IT triple C is great, but folks who are down in the trenches then are reliant upon whoever their director to be their representative, and for great reasons, like that person, that representative, doesn't know all the minutia, and all the intricacies. And I'm curious if there's like a way that there could be more direct communication with, the exact person on either end of that, to have those more technical conversations that folks in leadership, for good, again, for totally good reason, like they shouldn't have to know all of those technical details. But that's always been an interesting piece of the puzzle. I don't have any answers, but um, it's just always something I'm interested in. And it's great when, yeah, when you have people that are willing to go to the, conferences or other IT Connects events or be a part of a community of practice where they can connect. Um, but, as we all know, I think some folks prefer to kind of be their little turtles and live in their bubbles. And how can you, say, well, if you're having, an issue with something, or if you have an opinion about the way something should be done, here's the person that you can contact and have this conversation, because maybe we can help one another out. I'm really curious about how that can be better. Not that it's bad, but there's always room for improvement. Um, so I don't know. No solutions, just thoughts, musings, I guess.
So I'm part of the Dell Bundle group, and it's a bunch of different people from different parts. And there's do it people, and there's all over campus, because we're trying to come up with, like, basically also asking Dell, it's like, so you said we're getting a new doc. When does that hit the thing? When is it going to be on the premiere page? And the of like what's available for different colleges, and trying to figure out all that stuff. And it's been great being able to hear other people's stuff. And it's not stuff that our IT director does not care what version of doc we're using, that the new SD20 blah 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 came out. Really, he does not care anymore. That's not his job. Mine is to remember, okay, now we've moved on to this model, and the naming conventions have changed, and I'm supposed to share it out to the other people in my department that care.
Hmm.
So that's kind of one of the things and sometimes for us, we kind of have to, there's a lot of opportunities to do things like that, but we have to delegate them out, because otherwise it's one person that stuck, not stuck, has the opportunity to go to a lot of meetings, and then they feel like they're not getting the stuff done as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but I love the fact that Do It Communication's been really good about like letting us know some of the stuff that's going on. It's like, oh, hey, this is going on, and trying to be able to be included.
Hmm. Yeah, I wonder if, yeah, being involved in more like task force types of projects and initiatives across campus might be beneficial for folks that, yeah, they want to be in the weeds with stuff. Yeah, that's a great example, Sarah.
I know from my time on campus that it's definitely knowing people who do things. But even through that, there are certain groups that they only want the official process. Like it doesn't matter if you know them. It doesn't matter if you've spent time on a beach in the Caribbean with them. They aren't going to talk to you about it unless you've submitted that ticket.
That's interesting. Very by the books.
I'd have to
I
agree
guess
with
it's one way
Eric.
to get through a potluck without getting interrupted. Sorry, Sarah, what were
That's
you saying?
okay. The two Sarahs are trying to talk at the same time. Happens all the time. I think that you had a really good point about the information sharing that we get from communications, and any kind of information sharing is super important because, like, let's say that there's a wireless outage and our faculty are asking us, why is the wireless out? And we don't know because nobody's told us because they haven't. And I think even having those ITCCC emergency meetings where they talk about nothing but the wireless outage gives us enough to say they're really trying, they're trying hard, this is the issue at hand, thank you for your patience. And it helps us not be it helps us be part of the solution, I think. And anytime that there is a situation like that, like if somebody stops in my office and says, why isn't this working? I can look at outages and saying, oh, there's an outage and they're working on it. And you can look here to see it if you are interested. So it helps us communicate with our faculty and staff, and it helps them understand that there's people who are doing that aren't us, and it really makes us all feel together in the same situation.
One
Sarah
thing I
has
feel
a,
like oh, go
no, go ahead, Jamie.
I was gonna say one thing I feel like I heard at the conference, and I noted it, is like some challenges in the handoffs of like, like some faculty member, opens a ticket or, emails or whatever the outreach looks like in like a local IT unit. And then it turns out that like it's a issue with their email. It needs to get handed off to do it to handle. And I feel like we see that dynamic a lot, and it's a tricky one because it's like there's a need for a handoff, but then it's like, what are the mechanics of that handoff? And there isn't like a one size, there isn't a repeatable pattern. Current state is, there's not like a, here's the way you do that. It's like everyone's kind of got their own approach for how those requests originate and then how those come in to do it. And, is it the IT person handing it off on behalf of the faculty? Is the faculty member reaching out? Just like the advice that is given to the end user might vary. She's on vacation, so I guess I can freely offer up Hannah Pringle as a person to reach out to if anyone would want to deep dive into like how do the tickets come in to your unit, and then how does the handoff to the Do It Help Desk look. Hannah Pringle leads our help desk unit and could work with folks. We did that. We've done that with groups, and then when Do It and Ames merged, like we had to do that kind of internally because that used to be the dynamic. Is like Ames would intake tickets and then they would hand certain things off to Do It. And so we, when you're all now in Do It, it's like you don't want that layer of handoff. It's just like coming in through one place. So, just like we've had to pick that apart in a few other different places and then figure out like where do we need to adapt a process, or where do we need better documentation, or some technical solution. So I think on the original question of like ways for people who are doing this work, I feel like that's a good opportunity, is just to say like, I'm trying to help someone, you're trying to help someone. Can we sit down and figure out like how we help them together and what we need to adjust about like our systems or processes or whatever along the way. That might be a good opportunity that's not at that sort of like I'm watching a bunch of presentations level of cross collaborating. So I'll put Hannah's email in the chat and
Yeah, even just like best practices developed, right? Like best practices everyone can look to of like what to do when it's time to hand off a ticket. I know the ones for me that get the stickiest are the ones that get kicked back. Like we send them to do it and then do it's like, no, you have to go to Merit and back and forth. But I have worked with Jose, who helped plan the IT Support Symposium. And I'll just at this point, I'm just like, Jose, why did this one come back? And we'll talk through it. And it started to make so much more sense to how they do get kicked back to me. But like without that direct communication with Jose, I wouldn't know why they were coming back for years.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
have
and a
a
good
slide when we do kind of orientation for, we call them contract partners, the departments that contract with Do It for their help desk and departmental support kind of bundled services. And we have a slide that shows like they have a dedicated help desk team, but then certain kinds of services, certain tickets go to like those technical service teams. And so we have something that explains like, okay, for this category of stuff, you're going to get your dedicated help desk team. You've got departmental support. This is all in the MOU for what you pay for. But if something happens with like your email, if we can't address it, then it needs to go to the technical team. And at that point, you're in like, that's like for the whole campus. It's not just like the people who are getting that specific support. It's like a student having problems with their email, or, anyone out in the world. So it's like showing them that visual of like, this is when you go into kind of a different queue essentially, alongside other people who are not part of this like contracted, dedicated support, and like what it can look like there. And then usually it's like we can help check in on that. We can, it's all still in the same system, but it's like you're working with a different team. You're working with like a technologist with a subject matter expertise, and it's like they have to do that work. Like we can't do it for you. So walking people through that helps, I think.
All right, so I had a
But yeah,
question in the chat about if anyone can share how they get their departments to include them earlier in the planning process. That is a tricky one, right? I want a seat at the table early, and I think we all have experience knowing that that makes a huge difference. And Sarah offered up an example. Anyone else, though? If not, we have about 10 minutes left. Ella and Sarah, I don't know if you want to stay on this topic or try a new one.
I'll just plus what Sarah N is saying is sort of anticipating potential needs, asking those questions. Don't wait to be asked, just like what might they need? What might they not be thinking about? How do I avoid the last minute crisis? Maybe, hopefully.
And the person who was in charge was apologetic. And she said, I'm sorry. I just assumed we'd have equipment. And that's the thing is they're not thinking about IT. They see me in the hallway all the time. They knew who I am. They know that what we do, but they're just not thinking about it.
Yeah, I think for those annual things, you kind of like maybe put it on your own radar. Be like, is this coming up? But they're not always annual things.
And especially in academia, with we have a lot of more adjunct faculty than we used to, and so these adjunct faculty aren't necessarily around a lot. They're new. They don't know how things work. Um, they just assume they are given what they need to do, and that's it. So there's a lot of education that has to happen. It seems like my entire fall semester is just telling people how to do things. By spring, it's a little easier, but there's always something.
We recently had someone try to wanted to set up an AV system with stuff they could find on Amazon for less than $100. And it's like, no, that's not going to last for more than a year. So it would have been nice to get included before they started purchasing stuff.
We had one of those recently. A department came to us and they're like, "We got this beautiful smart board at Swap. Can you set it up for us?" No, no. It ran some ancient Android version. We were like, "You can only use it as a TV."
Wouldn't it be great if Swap like had a way to notify people when something
Yes.
gets purchased? And so we're like, no.
Or like a sticker that went on it that was like, "This cannot be used on the UW campus anymore."
Or you could say, I sent that in. Don't send it back to me. Why don't we do a magic question just to see if, okay, and I guess I'll read it off. So magic question open to everybody. What piece of technology do you secretly miss, even if it drove you a little nuts? And I'm guessing no one's going to say their personal printer.
Eudora.
Eudora.
Dora.
What I liked about it is the mailbox structure was really, really apparent. And if somebody said, how do I back up my email? I go in this folder and back up the Mbox files, and then you'll have them. There's no magic to it. It's take the files here and put it over there. And I feel like Outlook is complicated and the other options for backing up email are complicated. And Eudora was just so nice. It was just easy. Half the reason that people are still using Apple Mail is because they used to be Eudora users and it's as close as you can get approximation.
I like that, John. Eudora was quirky, but it was predictably quirky.
I really liked Windows ME. I know that like it wasn't many folks' favorite, but for me it was like the smoothest version of Windows I ever ran. I was disappointed when I had to upgrade to XP.
People are gonna jump on me about this, but I still use Microsoft Access occasionally. It does what I need. I know exactly what I need to do and exactly how to do it. And it's a horrible program, but it works for me.
Same way I kind of miss batteries that were easier to take out that you don't have to remove 10 tiny screws. I know why we went to something smaller, but it was nice when you
I,
could just pop it out.
I had to recently show a student how to remove a M.2 hard drive. Like not a hard, they're this big. I'm like, just remove the hard drive. And she's like, what hard drive? Yeah.
Anyone else out there with some old tech they will admit to missing? In the chat is fine too, if you don't want to say it out loud. Blackberries, USB ports. Yeah, saying goodbye to USB, the original USB port has been weird on computers, especially in the support world. Like, this used to plug into everything.
I purposely just bought a computer that is chunky just so I still have Ethernet port on my laptop because I hate having to carry so many adapters for when I need to just see if just want to know if the jack works.
Like, this is supposed to be done. All right. Well, we're pretty close to time. If anybody had any questions for us or thoughts or anything else they want to share, we'll just open the floor for the last few minutes, I think. Oh, and we're going to say that next year's IT Support Symposium is going to be that same-ish mid-April time, where our first choice is April 21st. We're waiting to hear back from the union on whether or not that works for them.
Mhm.
And thank you all for joining in the discussion
Yeah,
and
thank
being
you
here today.
thanks for continuing the conversation. Hopefully we'll see you at, I think there's only just a few sessions left today. So I'm going to go ahead and plug our feedback survey you should be getting in your email soon. So please help us make this conference better. And I'm sure that Ella and Sarah would be happy to take any additional feedback you might have about the IT Support Symposium too.